Noswe Thar. At the end of the 1864 cricket season, early in October, a dinner was held at the Turf Hotel just over my right shoulder behind the stand that now stands today. At that dinner, the then Secretary of Denbighshire County Cricket Club, Edward Manners, made an announcement, and that was that he was going to purchase a football because of the great want of amusement in this town in winter time. A couple of weeks later, on the 22nd of October 1864, the Wrexham Weekly Advertiser promoted the first ever match of Wrexham Football Club. And this is what it said. Football, this good old leg hit game, is now about to be revived in Wrexham. A match will be played this day on the Denbighshire County Cricket Ground between 15 of the town club just formed and 15 of the fire brigade. And so it all began. In the end, 15-a-side became 10, and Wrexham lost that opening match to the Prince of Wales Volunteer Fire Brigade by 2-1. But football in Wrexham was alive and kicking, and tonight, 160 years to that day, Wrexham have the opportunity to continue to consolidate their outstanding start in League One with Huddersfield Town, the visitors. Delighted on this special night to be joined by Andy Morrell and Mia Roberts, both of whom have played a not insignificant part in Wrexham's history. Andy, of course, still the only manager to lead Wrexham to a trophy at Wembley, and Mia, one of the catalysts in that team who helped the Wrexham women get promotion and turn semi-professional just a couple of years ago. Great to see you both this evening.
Thanks for having us.
A special night to be here tonight, but there will be a balance, of course, between nostalgia and celebration, and a very important job to do on the field of play. Huddersfield come tonight, 2 straight wins for them, and Mia, they're going to be a very stern test, I think.
Yeah, I think it shows in the fact they're one of the ones that came down last year, and the quality in their side. I think you've seen it already this season. I know they've been a bit in and out here and there, but they're yet to draw a game. It's one or the other with them at the moment, but hopefully we can get the right side of that result tonight. And yeah, it should be a really good game tonight. I'm expecting 2 top quality sides of League One to go head to head tonight.
Andy, you were both at Rotherham on Saturday. Phil Parkinson afterwards clearly delighted with the performance, citing the resilience and the work rate of his side. How did you see that performance, perhaps compared to some of the other wins that Wrexham have had so far this season?
Yeah, I felt that they had a lot more energy about their play, and obviously they got the incredibly early goal from Paul Mullin, and again another Ryan Barnett cross. But that gives you something to hang on to. I suppose you can maybe score too early, but 15 seconds is incredibly early, isn't it? But it was a good game. They really dug in. First half, I think they were a little bit too respectful to Rotherham, but second half they were very, very good. They were on the front foot, a lot more pressure on the ball, and had some really good chances to maybe make it a few more if they could. And defensively, they were really solid, really strong. Dan Scarr especially was fantastic, and marshalled the centre of that defence really well and kept a brilliant away clean sheet.
Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, Phil Parkinson has taken a perspective, if it's not broken, why fix it? And names the same starting 11 tonight as were victorious at the New York Stadium on Saturday. So that'll be Arthur Okonkwo in goal, the established back three of Owen O'Connell, Dan Scarr and Tom O'Connor. Ryan Barnett and James McLean at wing-backs, Andy Cannon and Elliot Lee alongside central linchpin George Dobson, and Paul Mullin and Ollie Palmer paired in attack. No Steve Fletcher on the bench for Wrexham tonight. We will ask Phil Parkinson what's behind that when he hopefully joins us very soon. But Mia, were you expecting to see any changes from Phil tonight, or is that pretty much what you thought you'd see?
No, that was fully expected from me, to be fair. I think the only one might have been Andy Cannon. I know he was sort of struggling with something on Saturday, managed to finish that first half after a knock after about 30 minutes or so, but he was the only one. I think Ollie Rathbone actually came on and put in a really good shift in that second half, but other than that, no, I don't think you can change it. I think the lads who played on Saturday put in a really good shift, like Andy alluded to, especially in that second half. They had to dig deep at times and they did that, so no surprises tonight.
Andy, Huddersfield, a team who had a sticky start to the season, but they've won their last 2, and on paper, lots of experience in this squad from players who know this level and the one above, and certainly one of the bookmakers' favourites at the start of this season to really challenge at the top end.
Yeah, they're really strong. in depth from last year. They've kept a few of those players and refreshed the squad as well for a fresh challenge this season. Just catching up with Rooster there before, and he was saying we had a really good start to the season. Then we just had a little bit of a blip, but they've certainly been a lot better in the last two. So they found that little bit of form coming here. So Wrexham are going to have to be bang on it to get anything out of this game tonight.
Yeah, Kevin Rooster Russell, the assistant manager at Huddersfield Town. There's quite a few Wrexham connections in the Huddersfield contingent, both on and off the pitch this evening. And we'll get a chance to hear from a couple of those as we build up to kick off tonight. You see the Huddersfield players running out behind us for their warm-up. The Wrexham players having emerged from the dressing room just a minute or so before. You can get in touch tonight. We've got a new hashtag for Matchday Live. It's hashtag WXM Matchday Live, all one word, and it's on the top of your screen right now. So get in touch through the evening, and we would love to hear your views and any questions you've got for the team. And we've got a chance to bring Phil Parkinson in now to join our group, and we'll get Phil's thoughts ahead of the match this evening. Phil, thank you very much as ever for joining us on Matchday Live on a very special night for the club on the 160th anniversary. What are your thoughts looking ahead to this game?
Yeah, good test for us. Great game coming here on the back of a terrific win at Rotherham. They're three at the back, kind of like a hard to break down team. But yeah, looking forward to it. Listen, under the lights here at Stoke Curragh Stadium, there's nothing better when you turn up. There's a feeling that it's a big game, and the lads are itching to get started.
You've named an unchanged side from the team who won on Saturday. Was that a straightforward selection for you, Phil, or were there any marginal calls?
I felt the lads did well, and deserved the shirts again tonight. Obviously, there's players pushing for places, but the lads in the team have done well.
Paul Mullin got through the full 90 on Saturday, and I heard him say post-match that he'd felt when he was training in the week before the game like his old self again. Do you see that the same way? Yeah,
definitely. I felt the break, the international break, we utilised really well with Paul. He had the minutes against Wolves. He had a few days rest over the weekend, and we all felt leading up to the Rotherham game that he was at his sharpest. And like we said, it's been a process with Paul to get him back to where we want to be. We've had no need to rush him, because obviously the form of Jack and Ollie, but the timing for him to come back in, obviously very unfortunate for Jack, has been good for Paul.
And just a quick word on Jack. I know he had his procedure this week. Your programme notes suggest it's gone as well as could be expected. Yeah,
he's had the operation yesterday. Kev Mulholland went down. He was there with him, and he said it went well. It is a serious injury, and it's just a long road for him, but he'll be hopefully ready to come back and contribute before the end of the season.
I also saw you mention in your notes that you know the Huddersfield squad well. What sort of challenge do you expect them to bring tonight?
I think key players, Miller against Barney, the left wing back, who Barney's got the most crosses in the division, Miller's got the second most. Great matchup on that side. Two strikers make good runs, so a little bit different to Rotherham, where they're probably more direct. These two strikers make clever runs. We've got to make sure we're ready for that, and the communication with our back three is good. We feel there's space down the sides of the three centre-backs. Can we exploit that with Mullen's mobility? So we'll be looking at that. But I think like every team, they've got key players, but so have we. Can we get the detail right of how we deal with our players? And can we look to get our best our players at the top end of the pitch on the ball in key areas?
And just finally, Phil, no Steve Fletcher on the bench tonight. What's behind that?
Yeah, Fletcher's knee swelled up after Saturday, so he's had an injection, but there's no way he could have been involved tonight. Fletcher's tough, and he's carried on with quite a few things since he's been here, but unfortunately it was a step too far for him, and he'll probably miss a couple of weeks.
Phil, thanks very much as ever for joining us. All the very best for the game. Hopefully we'll see you afterwards.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Good luck.
Cheers.
Thank you, Phil. Wrexham manager Phil Parkinson joining us on Matchday Live. An interesting reflection there, Mia, I thought, on the different style we might see from Huddersfield's forwards tonight versus Rotherham's style on Saturday.
Yeah, definitely. I think it will be a different style of play, but also you've got to think they're coming here, they're away from home. They might also change that up again. I think Rotherham at home on Saturday we're a bit more confident. We're very good on the ball, but we managed that, and I think we've done that a few times against different teams who've come here and away from home. We've had different styles of play, and we've gone up against them and played our way and really put our stamp on the game.
Well, Phil mentioned Ryan Barnett and his likely intriguing battle with opposite number Miller for Rotherham tonight. And Mia, you've been taking a close look at Ryan Barnett, who's really shone for Wrexham so far this season.
Yeah, I think he's definitely been the one so far this season who's really stood out, and I think just looking at the last 2 games, I think he's managed now 4 assists in the last 2, which is the stats sort of speak for themselves. I think particularly in that Northampton game, he was just unbelievable. I think if you could mark him over 10 out of 10, you would. He was just untouchable that day, and speaking to him after the game, I think he came across so well. You can just tell he's absolutely loving his football. But in this system that Phil likes us to play, them wing backs are so important. Him and James McNeil, the physical demands that are put onto them are so high, but they hit them levels each and every week. You have to say, not only going forward but also defensively as well. And I think just looking at on the highlights there, particularly on that James McNeil goal, just the one before this one. It all comes from just that build-up play. We're just a bit quicker on the ball, and we get that ball across the other side of the pitch. Ryan Barnett, on that 1v1, you always fancy him, even though the defender might look like he's the better off in that situation. He still manages to get round him really well, and I think he's done that so well this season, as well as getting back defensively too.
He's clearly a player who's going in the right direction, Andy.
Yeah, I'm just watching those clips and he's so difficult to mark. What do? Do you go tight to him because in 1v1 he's so quick, so tidy with his tricks, and then if you step off him and let him, he just crosses the ball around you. And so you've got to try and work out what's the best way to stop him. We were talking on Saturday about, I think we just have to show him onto his left foot. Don't let him cross it with his right. Can we show him onto his left foot and hope that the probabilities that his left isn't quite as good as his right? But still, I don't think he would take that. He would still chop back, go back on his right, and he's just still too good to move that defender out the way to be able to open up that little crossing lane for him to put it in the box. And I think you've watched the Rotherham goal. We're 15 seconds into the game. There's no thought process in his head apart from getting the ball, taking his man on and crossing it. And you know that because there's 4 Wrexham players already in the box after 15 seconds trying to get on the end of it. And normally you're a little bit tepid going away from home, and no. He's crossing it in the box, we're getting in the box and we're going to score early.
Well, tonight, as we mentioned, is 160th anniversary night here at Wrexham. And we wanted to ensure that we gave due time to remembering how it all began and some of Wrexham's early years. Who better to inform us than Geraint Parry, supporter and football secretary at this club for 50 years. I caught up with him earlier this week. Well, Geraint, 160 years since Wrexham played its first ever match. Who better than you to tell us and remind us about the formation? How did it all begin?
Happily, I wasn't there, but yeah, it was a cricket club, and with a lot of football teams, this is how it started. The cricket members wanted to do something during the winter, and then Mr. Manners, who was the secretary of the cricket club, came out in 1864, early October, and said, I'm going to buy a football. Because, there's no big sports retailers, or even Stuart Mason's didn't have a sports shop in those days. So where the heck do you get a football from? He was a Yorkshireman. Football was very strong in South Yorkshire, different sets of rules in different parts of the country, and because nothing was unified at that stage. And so he said, I'm going to buy a football. 2 weeks later, I've got a football. Put it in the paper. Gentlemen, come down to the racecourse at 2:30 on whichever Saturday it was, and we'll start it all off. And it literally got the ball rolling from that stage.
Now, the actual date when Wrexham kicked that first football, we now know is 1864, but that isn't something that was known actually that long ago.
No, it isn't. Some of our older fans will probably remember us celebrating our centenary in 1973, which people tried to research it, but the information wasn't there. With this stuff now going digital and the fluid county records and becoming available rather than having to get an appointment and go all the way to Denby or whatever with it, people can now start looking from all around the world. Pete Jones in particular, as people will know from his books on the club, even with Pete started off, he's reading through old newspapers, the Wrexham Advertiser, and it's very hard. There's no sports pages in those days. It's just hidden away somewhere in the very close type, no photographs. and eventually finds a bit more. And they go back to about, I think it was 1872 was once they came up with the sort of next, pushed it back a bit. And then it came through that they found a report about the cricket club having their annual dinner, their first annual dinner in 1865. So that means if that's the first for the cricket and football and athletic club, then it must be a year earlier. And then he digs back a bit further and finds the comments from Eric Manners, the then secretary of the cricket club, to say that he wanted to do something during winter for fans, for the players to do. And there's a local insurance company, Provincial Insurance, which were very keen on their members having any access to sporting opportunities, and so they got involved as well. And between the pair of them, they sort of come up, well, let's have a game. And then it turned out to be their fire brigade, I think it was, because they were an insurance company, so in those days they had their own fire brigades to put out anybody who's got a claim. They only went to people's houses who were insured. Somebody burning down the street, hard luck.
Bad luck.
Yeah. So it was a game. It was supposed to be 15-a-side on the 22nd of October, 1864. In the end, as anybody I suppose who runs a Sunday League side will know, half the team doesn't turn up.
A few pull-outs.
Yeah, exactly. So you got 10. I think it was 10-a-side in the end. And it was a best of three, I think it was, wasn't it? How they played these games. Of course, there were no set rules.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah, Sheffield rules, Cambridge rules, and then London rules, which London rules then became the FA, were also very prevalent, and they were probably the three dominant ones at the time. But yeah, I mean, how do you mark a pitch out? What's the size? How big is the goal? You didn't have crossbars or anything in those days. How do you identify the players themselves?
Yeah.
That's where caps came into existence that we know for internationals. But that's, if you look at some of those old programmes, the Corinthians against, they were playing back in the FA Cup, and it was Mr. Jones was wearing a green and red cap. His teammate up front, Mr. Smith, was wearing a blue and white cap. And that was how they described the players. Why anybody didn't think, let's just all turn up in the same blue, one in blue and one in green kits. Yeah. But again, there were no outfitters to go and get these things done. And I'm sure there's
just
a few
on that point.
who knitted them
knitting
properly.
Them together, quite right. But just on that point, Geraint, when the club was founded in the Turf Hotel, of course, famously on that date in 1864, the original colours that Wrexham played in were not the red and white that we're so familiar with now.
That's right. They really only came around after the Second World War. If you go back and look in history, and again, what did they play? We've got black and white photographs, so we've got an idea. And there's a few good websites which give you the colour changes year by year all the way through. You sometimes do wonder that what they could get their hands on was basically the colour you played in. But certainly after the after the First World War, we played it in predominantly blue. And the most famous one was the blue shirts with a white hoop, which was, I believe it's Walker's Crisps from the Salt and Shake or something. They had little salt bags in them, and that's what they called the salt bags. That was one of the nicknames at the time.
Oh, wow. Little
blue bags of salt inside your white packet of crisps. So why we changed to red after war? I don't know. Delighted we did.
I was wondering if you knew that.
Lovely colour.
Yeah.
So we're very happy for that. I often do wonder if it's just literally whatever they could get their hands on. And people said, I like the red, let's stick with it. And away we went with it.
Football Secretary Geraint Parry telling us all about the initial formation of Wrexham FC. We'll see more from Geraint at half-time, so please come and join us back on YouTube at half-time, and then the final part of that interview will go out after full-time tonight as Geraint starts to tell us more about his journey following Wrexham and particular memories that stand out for him. Well, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, there are lots of Wrexham connections in the Huddersfield Town group tonight, both on the field with Chris Maxwell on the bench, in the dugout with Kevin Rooster-Russell as assistant manager, but also in the boardroom. Their CEO is former Wrexham player Jake Edwards, and their sporting director, former goalkeeper Mark Cartwright. Andy Morrell, who once shared a house with those two, and I caught up with Jake and Mark just a few moments ago. On Wrexham's 160th anniversary night, we have the bonus of two of the senior Huddersfield Town leaders joining us at the Kairos, who are ex-Wrexham players. Fantastic to see Mark Cartwright and Jake Edwards back at the Stoke Kairos. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Lovely to see you. And alongside them, of course, Matchday Live regular Andy Morrell, who was part of this unholy trinity, perhaps, of
I think so.
former
I think so,
colleagues
yeah.
back in their playing days at the club. Great to see you, gents, and thanks very much for giving up your time. Mark, let's start with you, a former Wrexham keeper who appeared for the club on many occasions. What's it like to be back here?
It's weird actually, because it's completely changed. Obviously, when we played here, that side was derelict, and then the cop was over there. This is exactly the same though. But yeah, no, it's changed. It's changed for the better.
And Mark, you're now in the role of sporting director at Huddersfield. Tell us a little bit about how you got into that and what your role encompasses.
So when I finished playing football, very briefly I became an agent, and then got to know the owners at Stoke very well, and basically they headhunted me in to be the sporting director at Stoke for just shy of 8 years, many of which were in the Premier League, and we actually came and played Andy in pre-season, didn't we?
Correct. Yes.
And then from there I went over to the States and worked for the league that Jake was the president of, and then we both came back over to Huddersfield, and basically the sporting director encompasses anything that is going to be pitch related, so whether that's obviously first team, the coach, medical, analysis, everything that is going to affect what happens on the game day.
Excellent, a really diverse role then, Mark. And Jake, you have the big seat at Huddersfield, the Chief Executive Officer at the club. Was that something in your career plan when you were plying your trade for Wrexham in the late 90s?
Not back then, no, but towards the end of my career, it was apparent to me that I wasn't that interested in the coaching route, and I was far more excited by the business and administration side. So post-playing, I worked in sponsorship agency in London. I've ran a league in the States for a number of years, but it was always an ambition to come back to the UK, run a football club here, and it's been an amazing first year. Learned so much with Huddersfield. Great club, great history, recent Premier League experience. We've got a really passionate and strong fan base and a good stadium, and loads to do, you know. And so here we are, season 2. We've made a lot of progress in so many areas. Great to work with Mark on this project, and we brought some great people into the club. But it is really exciting to be back here. First time I've been here in over 2 decades, and wonderful to stand here next to a former teammate and housemate.
It's correct.
And I think what's changed, the three of us had a lot more hair back in those days.
Well, I didn't want to say.
And
I think I've got the most out of all of us, and that is, I've not said that very often.
Well, it's great to see you, Jake. Andy, give us a little bit of an insight of living with these gentlemen back in
No, well, these two boys really helped me when I first came to Wrexham. They were already here. They made me settle in. They helped me around that. We just spent a lot of time off the pitch together, causing a little bit of mayhem, playing a lot of Tomb Raider. A lot of custard creams were eaten at that time, I think. You know, I'm just really surreal in here, you know, looking at you two boys, and you've done so well in your careers. You know, when we were sat on that sofa playing Tomb Raider or whatever, you know, did you think that this was something that could possibly happen in 20 odd years' time?
Oh, incredible.
Absolutely not. I don't think so.
I was saying on the way in here, what an amazing career, not just as a player, but as a manager. And thinking of Andy, in those days, one day becoming the manager of the football club was, you didn't think about those things. You're a young player, early 20s, you just put your head down and worked hard and you tried to have a career. You weren't thinking about life after football. It seemed like a million miles away, but it soon arrives and it's upon you. And the guys next to me, they've all done wonderful things, and many of the players, teammates of those years have gone on and done very exciting things in football, and we see them now from time to time on our travels. So,
do you miss playing? Do you miss playing? I miss playing every day. That was my favourite part, was just training and playing. Do you miss it?
You know, I miss being fit. I miss being fit, miss the banter, miss being around the lads. Those were great days. Yeah, I do miss playing. I miss the thrill you get from stepping out on the field, and I miss working together with a group to try and achieve a goal out there. So I do miss it, but it's the seat we sit in now. I don't know. It seems like it's more stressful. You're still worried about the result all the time, and
of course,
you know. But I do miss it. Yeah.
I mean, I think you miss playing as much as you can, but ultimately you've taken that next step, and this is where you get your adrenaline from.
That's right.
And it's the building, it's the watching the game. It's, you know, I'm on blood pressure tablets through the roof every Saturday and Tuesday nowadays. So yeah, it's different, but this is as close to the game as you're going to get.
And Mark, to take you back to your playing days here, A highlight probably for you, keeping Manchester City out in the 98-99 season when the two clubs are in the same division, 0-0 at Main Road in front of 27,000. Still got good memories of that day?
Oh, great memories of that day. I think it was probably my one good game for Wrexham, I think.
I think you had a second.
Possibly did. No, it was absolutely fantastic, because that was my first season as the number one, and going in there, and I think it was only like 2 or 3 or 4 games in, and they were the big team in the league, and it was absolutely phenomenal to go to Main Road and to perform like that on the day was just superb, and the memories you've got, you will never forget them.
Jake, you mentioned your time in America and running one of the big leagues over there. Yep. We've of course got a lot of interest from American fans now at Wrexham. What can you tell us about running a major competition over in the States? What did you learn from it?
It was an amazing experience, a little over 10 years in that seat when I started at the USL, which is sort of an equivalent of the EFL in America under MLS. We had eight clubs, so a lot of work to do, and when I left there was a little over 42 clubs, and we'd had multiple divisions and national TV presence and quality players coming through those clubs. So it was an interesting experience because here we're used to 160-year-old clubs, 100-year-old clubs. We're used to an infrastructure. There we had to build it. So we were building clubs that didn't exist, bringing professional football to communities that didn't have access to touch it and feel it and experience it as a young kid. And so that was a very proud thing to be able to look back and think we delivered that to so many town cities, and so many kids now think that they could be professional footballers or work in the game because they can now see it and touch it and have a team of their own to cheer. So it was a great experience for 10 years, and we met so many wonderful people, and working with the federations and confederations and great owners like our owner. Kevin Nagel owns a team in the USL, the Sacramento Republic. Michael Williamson, I've just seen here, was president of one of the teams in Miami in the USL. So it was a great 10 years, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jake, Mark, fantastic to see you both back at the Stoke Kairos this evening. We don't wish you well for the 90 minutes ahead, but of course we wish Huddersfield all the very best for the rest of the season. And thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Jake Edwards and Mark Cartwright, Wrexham players from the late 90s, now heavily involved at Huddersfield Town, giving us some of their thoughts this evening. And you can see alongside me, we no longer have Mia Roberts and Andy Morrell, because for a very short period we're lucky to be joined by two Wrexham heroes from the late 80s, Graham Cooper and Nigel Beaumont. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to join us on this special night.
Thank you for having us.
Two of the 3 tykes, as I remember you were coined when you arrived, the two of you and Andy Thackeray, who's also here tonight. Are you still all inseparable?
Yeah, more or less, yeah, but he's over there and we're over here, so there's a long elastic band going over the pitch.
He's keeping warm.
Yeah, when Dixie signed us, we all had lodgings together. We stayed at Gareth Davis's place at Trevor Park,
right,
which was an experience. Gareth was absolutely fantastic way he treated us, and we spent many good months there with him, which was a pleasure, really.
What was it like arriving at the club, Graham? Because all jokes aside, culturally, I imagine very different from your Yorkshire roots, perhaps.
Well, I've got family that live here, and I kind of knew a little bit about the club, so I was quite happy to sign from Huddersfield. And yeah, it wasn't surprised, the history with Dixie, Joey. I played at Huddersfield with Joey, so he kind of convinced me to come, and which is brilliant. So yeah, I wasn't really surprised. I just think that at the time the crowds were a little bit different. I came from the 2nd division and dropped down to the 4th, which is a little bit, the football were kind of a little bit more in your face type thing, where they played a little bit more football at the time in the old, 1st division it was called then, but no, I had no surprise. I knew what I was coming to. My family had filled me in about the club as well, so yeah, no surprises whatsoever.
Nigel, when you look back at your days at the club, is the playoff match against Orient one of the most abiding memories?
It was one of the most disappointing games, to be fair, because we drew with them here, we went down to there. We'd done well all season, we'd had a great season. We had a bit of a sticky patch when we lost top spot, and it was just disappointing to lose such a big game. And like we've said before, the fans here have always been absolutely fantastic, and you feel like you let them down. But not being funny, you crack on with it. I mean, there's been better teams than what we had who've just missed out on promotion, and it's just one of them things. Is that it's the first season they played the playoff where you played home and away. The year after that is Wembley, so it was just disappointing all round. But you know, it's such a great experience.
Graham, your debut I think was away at Exeter City, and you got off to a great start.
Yeah, incredible. I scored very quickly actually. Joey had said to me, when they push out, I'm just going to knock it over the top, you're quick, so get in behind. I got in on the keeper and thankfully scored, which is brilliant. Yeah, what a start. And Kevin Russell scored the other goal, so 2-0 away win. Happy days, you know.
And of course your time at the club included that epic match with Manchester United. Remind us a bit of the occasion and how it went.
Well, incredible. We've just been talking about it upstairs, but incredible because at the time they had a ruling where we could only play 4 foreign players, which I was classed as English at the time. So I'm looking around thinking, well, hang on a minute, why can't I play? You know, so I went to Flaney and said, look, you know, my dad's Welsh, you know, the family live in Wrexham, you know. So anyway, I ended up playing, but what an experience that was for guys like me and Nigel. They're probably never going to get to the top level. To play at Old Trafford is brilliant. I think we played Everton as well that same season. But to play at Manchester United home and away, even though we lost there, well, it's just things that dreams are made of, you know. Brilliant.
Nigel, who were some of the teammates that stick in your mind particularly who you enjoyed playing alongside during your spell?
Well, to be fair, as a team, like we said before, we had some great characters. Club didn't have much money then, but like we had John Bolden, Geraint, myself, who we've remained friends now for God knows how many years, Andy Fackery, you know, they were just great players, you know, in our eyes. You know, we had such a good team bonding. And here we go, Roosters, one of
Kevin
them.
Russell causing trouble.
So just gave him a jab.
Graham, when you look at the trajectory the club is on now, what are your reflections?
Well, I just think it's incredible. I mean, when you look back, I mean, we played in the 4th division. Unfortunately, I'd left the club and we ended up in the conference. I've spent 14, 15 years supporting Wrexham in the conference. We never believed what we're going to happen now. Thanks for the American guys for what they've done. It's incredible. You just go around Wrexham now, the place is buzzing. It's just, well, I don't think we could have dreamed of anything better, could we? You know what I mean? It's brilliant. Incredible.
Nigel, do you think Wrexham fans are right to dream of promotion again this season?
I don't, to be personally speaking, I don't see why not, because I've watched quite a few games now, and, you know, the lads have got into the habit of winning, which is a good habit to have. You know, I suppose we've had a better start than what some people are expecting, but there's been a couple of teams you think, yeah, they look promising, but it's one of them leagues where teams will take points off each other. So as long as you win your own games and pick up a few points away from home, you've been there at the end.
Nigel, Graham, lovely to see you both. Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having us anyway.
On Matchday Live, Graham Cooper and Nigel Beaumont giving us their thoughts ahead of Wrexham against Huddersfield Town tonight. And if we step back another 10 to 15 years when these gentlemen were gracing the Stoke Kairas, you'd land in the 70s, and towards the end of that decade, of course, some of Wrexham's finest days. Earlier tonight, I caught up with club president and legend Dixie McNeil, together with 70s stalwart Alan Hill. Dixie, Alan, fantastic to see you both on the night of the 160th anniversary of the club. You both played a lot for the team in the 70s, and particularly in that highly successful season of 77-78. Dixie, when you look back at your time at the club, and particularly that era under Arvon Griffiths, what are some of the memories that really stick out for you?
Well, as tough as it may sound, the brilliance of the crowd. The ground was always full with the spectators behind the goal at the back there. We all know that it was loud as anything, or they used to be. So, you know, to come here as a player, the atmosphere was terrific, as was the team at that time as well, thankfully. And like you said, we got promotion, and it was a great club for me to come to, if you like, for a new football club.
Alan, you'd arrived a few years before Dickie, signing schoolboy forms at the end of the 1960s before making your debut in 1973. Can you still remember well that day when you signed for the town?
Not the actual day, but it was John Neal that brought me here in the first place. Cliff Lloyd was the secretary then, and I was spotted by him playing schoolboy football. was asked to come on the ground staff, and that's what I did for 3 years.
And when you started your career here on schoolboy terms, Alan, how difficult was it to get ready for that opening opportunity as a first teamer?
Very difficult to get in the team. They'd just been promoted. We'd just been promoted to the 3rd division then, so it was a good side anyway. I think John had me in line for a place a couple of times, but never materialised. So I had a few years playing in the reserves. Eventually making my debut in 1975.
Dixie, you made your debut a few years later, arriving from Hereford. Can you remember that day clearly? Against Swindon, I think.
Yeah, I can remember it for sure. I mean, I think Wrexham had just missed out on promotion the year before, hadn't they?
Yeah.
Billy Ashcroft was a centre forward who went to Middlesbrough. Billy's 6'2", something like that, and was top player here. And without being doubted, it's great coming to the club. But the thought was, I've got to carry on as he did, and thankfully the way that the football club played, attacking football with 2 wide players, 1 on each side, it was brilliant playing as a centre forward.
Alan, as that club was building through the 70s, just building up really to that real peak period in the late 70s, did you get a sense here that things were developing and that really good times were just around the corner? Could you see it a bit of a way out?
Yeah. From when I first started, really, we had a fairly big ground staff there, and they all progressed to be professionals. And I think that more or less all of us came through to actually play in the first team, so it was building from when I first started, really. That's why it was so hard to get in the team. Dixie came to replace Billy, but we had Bobby Shinton and Graham Whittle as well, so with Dixie's goals and their contribution as well, we were a good side then.
When you arrived from Hereford, Dixie, were you actually surprised at how good a side Wrexham were? Did it pleasantly surprise you, or did you know what you were coming into?
Well, I think you always think you know what you're coming into, but when you get, you come here as the away team, and it's a good crowd. It's over 10,000 here. It's always noisy and loud. But I think when we got going, we were getting 20-odd thousand each home game.
It was standing them, wasn't it?
It was. So there's always a great atmosphere here, but I think it's like anything else. If you're a centre forward and you're getting some very good service, if you like, from wide players or midfield players, and you're getting chances, I think it shows you up more as a player than if you're obviously in the side that's struggling. Everybody says they know they're too old, or they've got this or they've got that. But as I said, coming here, the club was on the move, and I think it shows with the crowds that we get. We're well supported as a football club, but the team I played in was brilliant here.
That 77-78 season, I think, is widely considered the best in the club's history. Champions of the old 3rd Division, quarter-finals of the FA Cup, quarter-finals of the League Cup. When you look back at that season, Alan, what was your personal highlight amongst many?
The cup runs, probably, as well as the league. Obviously your first priority is to win the league, but the cup runs were great. Our attitudes going into the cup games was we're going to win. It didn't matter who we were playing. We played Liverpool in the cup, and we was fully expecting to give them a game here. We were all up for it. And the Arsenal game was the same, which I think we were a bit robbed in that game anyway. We scored not a particularly good goal, but there's nothing wrong with it, which was disallowed, which would have put us 1-0 up. Instead of that, they went down the other end of the pitch and scored. So we were a bit unlucky, but I would say the cup runs.
Alan mentions the cup runs there, Dixie. 11 goals for you in the 9 games. There was a few replays in there as well, as Wrexham reached the 6th round there in 77-78. And that, of course, was the era when there was no thought of clubs resting players. It was always teams putting out their first team, huge crowds, everybody going full at it. When you look back to those goals on that cup run, any that particularly stand out for you?
Well, I always think about the ones when we played at Newcastle. I think we drew here 2-2, didn't we, at home, and went to play at Newcastle. Obviously, they were then a First Division club, Premiership club, and the crowd there is fantastic, as everybody knows, in Newcastle. But to go up there and beat them, was it 4-1?
No, in the replay here.
Oh, was it here? Yeah, here. But to score goals against the First Division side is always brilliant for you as a player. So. But the cup runs and scoring goals as well, Absolutely terrific.
And a quirk of that cup run, Alan, was of course having beaten Newcastle United. Later in the run came Blythe Spartans, an amateur club from the North East, who actually filled St James's Park. I had a look back. I think there was 28,000 there for Newcastle, but 42,000 there for Blythe Spartans. What do you remember of those games?
I remember the home game, as I'm sure a lot of the Wrexham fans do. It was a particularly cold day. Really, you couldn't get your feet at all. We all had those dimples on your boots, didn't we? And Arvin was saying to the defenders anyway, kick it the way you're facing. So I happened to be facing that end, and I wanted to pass it back to Dye, and it was understruck. So he nipped in and scored, but it through Dye's legs. So that cost us not the game. But I tend to look at it with fond memories now, because from that we went to St James's to play the replay, and we managed to get a result there. So it was okay in the end.
I think looking at it though as well, it was not only our supporters that filled the ground, but they for a non-league club, there was that many of their fans that came here.
They weren't a bad side, were they?
It was brilliant, but it's like anything else. We won the games, no matter what, but that's what you get, especially in the FA Cup, don't you? You always find battles are there and you've got to beat them.
Well, we beat Bristol City on the way as well in that run. I mean, they were a first division side as well then, and we murdered them here, and we murdered Newcastle as well. We won quite easily, really, those games. So, as I said, that was the belief in the team. I'm sure we all went out thinking we're going to win. Just matter who we're playing, we're going to win. Because we knew we could score. We'd got the likes of Dixie and Shinner and Graham Hill in the team. We knew we'd score.
And turning back to the league, championship was secured. That took Wrexham up for the first time in their history to the second division, what is now the championship, where the club spent 4 years. What are your memories, Dixie, of the step up in standard of going up into the second division back then?
Well, I think it's a footballer, no matter what league you play in, you want to get promoted and go in a league higher, don't you? But I say the club, like it is now, the fans come in their thousands. You've always got a great atmosphere to come out here and play, but it's like anything else. You get confidence. You know when you've got a good side, no matter what. I mean, I don't know how many. Obviously, Mickey Thomas, Di Davis, Welsh internationals.
Before Arvin, Dave Swarman.
So there's always that kind of player there. But I think more than anything, I always thought the crowd was unbelievable here. It was worth a goal start when you were playing at home, no matter what, and hopefully it's getting again like that now, and hopefully we'll still keep going forward,
Alan? Memories of second division?
Second division? It was probably tougher than I thought it would be anyway, We never really got to the higher echelons, if you like, in that league, but we held our own for a couple of seasons, 2 or 3 seasons, before the decline started, really. But it's fun memories. That's where you want to play, isn't it? You always want to go to the higher league.
And that sounds a good area to kind of close on, Dixie. If you look at the way the team has started this year, they're trying to do exactly what you and Alan did, of course, back in 1978, which is get promotion to the second tier. Are you confident from what you've seen so far that it can be achieved this season?
I'm always going to be positive and say yes. I mean, I think we've done very, very well. We've got off to a good start. It'll be interesting, obviously, as the season goes on, but we're on the move forward, if you like, as a football club, and that's the way you want to be. I mean, I think all football clubs in their histories go up and down. We've been, but I won't say struggling, but obviously we were run with the supporters trust who kept the club going. When it was really bust, and they kept it going, didn't they? But obviously we've got no money to spend for players, where now we have got that money, and we're moving forward. And I can't say, I'm going to say this, I'm going to be positive. I think we always are like that. We're going to go up again this season. I can't see us not doing that. And then we'll see where we go from there. But it's brilliant, the club's on the move. It's great for the fans, great for the younger kids who have seen the club struggling for the last, if I said 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Suddenly the club's going forwards now, and that's great for the town.
Dixie, Alan, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks.
Pleasure, thank you.
Dixie McNeil and Alan Hill with their memories from the great days of the late 70s as we build up on this Wrexham's 160th anniversary night. Match Day Live, looking ahead to the game with Huddersfield Town. As you can see in the top right corner of the screen, 5.5 minutes to kick off, and as you can also see on screen, not only have Mia Roberts and Andy Morrell returned with scarves on, we've also got Paul Rutherford for company in the build-up to kick off. Paul, a very warm welcome, fabulous to see you.
No, obviously, thanks a lot for having me. Yeah, it's great to be back, to be honest, and seeing how much it's evolved.
We've had the chance in the run-up so far in the programme to look back a little bit further in Wrexham's history, but in the last 5 minutes before we send Andy and Mia off to commentate, a chance to come a bit more up to date. Mia, you're sporting the scarf with the Wrexham Supporters Trust on it. They of course took over the club in 2011, and I think the transition from the darkest days to the great days of now wouldn't have been possible without that group.
No, absolutely. They're so vital to where we are now. I think Rob and Ryan will say that themselves. Everyone in this stadium and around the world will say that because they can recognise that. And you know, that's all down to people like Spencer Harris, who sat up there, who did some unbelievable work for this club, all voluntary, all just because they love it. And I think, you know, we wouldn't be here without them today, and that's full credit to them. They're a massive part of this 160 years. They play a massive role in why we're here today. And you know, just look at nights like this, they're the reason why. And we're so lucky that they were part of that, and what they did, it can never be forgotten.
Andy, you played and then managed under Trust ownership, and of course in 2013 you led the team as player manager to victory at Wembley. Your scarf is the Wembley scarf, of course, that you're just giving a shake to there. I know you played at Wembley I think 4 times in your career, but does that one stand out as the highlight?
Yeah, well, you have to win first and foremost. Yeah, would I swap it for the playoff final that we got beat 2 months after? Probably. But yeah, so proud to lead the team out at their first appearance ever at Wembley, and then to win it. Probably the most pivotal part of Wrexham's history, I would say. Only joking.
Possibly.
Hey, being modest there.
Yeah. But no, a fabulous day, obviously, for the club and the fans, them digging out in the snow and all that. It's just a brilliant memory for me and such a proud moment.
And Paul, you then joined the club in 2016, and you came through 5 real roller coaster years. You had COVID to contend with, 3 managers in 1 season, I think, in 18-19. What stands out for you as your Wrexham memories?
To be honest, all of that. So all of that just made it just such a special experience. You know, having 3 managers in a year was difficult, especially when you're on a 1-year contract and you're trying to impress 3 different people. But just the whole experience was phenomenal. If I had to pick one highlight, it'd probably be the Salford home game here, Boxing Day.
Oh yeah.
You know, at the time it was bouncing, but compared to this tonight, I don't think you can draw a comparison. But it was a great game, great times, and you know, I was honoured to represent the club.
And of course, Paul, you've had the chance with Andy to still represent the club out in America at the TST tournament. How was that experience?
Are you recovered?
It was better representing the club than playing with him. Honestly, I think he lasted a game and a half. I think he lasted a game and a half and then said he fractured his ribs. But no, it was special. It was brilliant. It was crazy to see how big the club was over there. You know, every game we were playing on, we were on a showcase pitch, weren't we? There was people lining up to give us high fives. You know, there was real players there, and then there was us guys.
That's right.
And everyone
in there, weren't we?
Yeah, just grafting away, and you know, it was brilliant, and really brought back those memories of playing, and just felt good, felt special, felt alive again.
Well, Paul, fantastic to see you tonight. We're going to see you again at half-time. We will return on YouTube for Matchday Live for half-time analysis with Mia, with Andy and with Paul, and to hear again from Geraint Parry as we continue to look back at Wrexham's proud and eventful history. But as you can see, the players are coming out behind me. If you've not yet sorted your pass for the game, head to www.wrexhamafc.co.uk/live. Follow the links for iFollow, and that will sort you out. Here's hoping Wrexham can make it 6 out of 6 at home this season on their 160th birthday. We'll see you at half-time to see how it's going. Welcome back. It's half-time here at the Stoke Kairas. Wrexham 0, Huddersfield Town 0 on Wrexham's 160th birthday night. In truth, chances have been at a premium in a keenly contested first half. Wrexham have had the better of the territory and the possession, and had the best chance of the opening 45. Ryan Barnett, who Mia spotlighted pre-match, once again proving a threat. He managed to work his way into the penalty area, got his shot away, and Jacob Chapman with a good save in the Huddersfield goal, tipping the ball around the post. At the other end, Arthur Okonkwo hasn't been overly engaged. The best opportunity Huddersfield had was in the 44th minute. Bojan Radulovic with a header which went harmlessly wide of the upright. So all square at half-time. Mia, what were your thoughts on that opening 45?
Yeah, I thought it was quite intense, to be fair. I thought the intensity was really high, tempo was really good. Both teams obviously playing a very similar formation, if not the same, and pretty much going man for man. And I think, where we've seen joy is when Owen O'Connell have stepped in and made that space for themselves. And I think we saw it out wide when he did it out there, got that cross in. I think it was Ollie Palmer in the end who got the header to it. Maybe should have done a bit better, but Ryan Barnett again, impressive. Massively impressed, and he's the only clear-cut chance, though. We need to see some more clear-cut opportunity second half.
Andy?
Yeah, the intensity of the game's fantastic. Both teams going full at it. Two really good teams in League One, going for each other in a high-tempo game. I think it's been a good quality game, and I think Huddersfield have definitely defended their box really, really well. Any crosses coming in, any corners that they've dealt with really, really well. They've picked up their men and been able to clear the danger. But Wrexham, the majority of possession, like we said, I think they've been on the front foot. Dobson key to that, getting a lot of second balls. And they'll be pleased with their first half, but we need to create a little bit more if we can in that final third.
Paul, you and I spoke about the territory that Wrexham were enjoying in that first half. Do you think Phil Parkinson might be slightly disappointed they haven't created more chances?
Yeah, I think, like the guys have said there, we've had a lot of territory. We've, two good teams, two good competitive teams that are looking to cancel each other out more than maybe hurt each other at the moment. I think we've had a lot of success down the right-hand side with Barnett. I think if we can get a couple more options around Barnett in terms of, there was a couple of scenarios where, Cannon had run in behind and he created that extra option for them and left them a little bit more 1v1. If we can create that scenario a couple more times with his quality into the box, I think that could be, an area of success for Wrexham in this game.
Andy, we've seen 5 wins out of 5 so far this season, but I guess as Wrexham chalk off every next win here, then the next opponents will be looking and saying, how do you crack the code here? And do you think Michael Duff's had a good look at this and said, well, actually, if you match them up man for man and you get in their faces early, that's perhaps your best hope of stifling Wrexham?
Yeah, well, we've had teams come here and try to do that and then quickly change, haven't we, off the back of that? Exactly that. But Huddersfield have got real quality in their team, and they've got pace, enthusiasm, and good experience as well. So they'll be sticking to that plan. I think they've got it right. They're going right up against it. Any time that our back three have got the ball, they're real pressing really high, and Wiles in the centre mid is jumping as well to make 3v3. And so it's becoming an attrition really. And I think it's just going to have to be with Wrexham. They're going to have to just wear them down, keep doing their things, keep playing into Palmer, keep playing into Mullin, and hopefully one of those crosses that we've spoke about will then end up on the right head rather than a Huddersfield head.
0-0 here then so far. Let's have a look around the division. We've got a full programme tonight in League One, and we have the chance to have a look at the half-time scores for you now, and we'll pick out one or two of the key talking points from those. Just waiting to get those on screen. We'll come back for those in just a sec. Oh no, here we go. Looks like we're striking with some success here. Let's have a look around the division tonight. And well, the main talking point perhaps at London Road, Peterborough beating Blackpool by 3-1. Blackpool had a very good run of late. They lost at home to Barnsley on Saturday, and they're being beaten in Cambridgeshire tonight by 3-1. The other teams in the lead, Barnsley beating Charlton, Birmingham ominously again up against Bolton Wanderers, Burton holding Wickham, who've made such a good start to the season, 1-1. Reading are really on an upward trajectory. They are 2-0 up down in the southwest at St James's Park. Exeter, who've also been going well. The other teams with a half-time advantage. Struggling Cambridge, desperate for something, sitting rooted to the bottom of the table with just a point. They're 1 up at Stevenage, and Mansfield with the lead at Wigan. Mia, your reflections on one or two of those?
Yeah, not too many surprises in there. I don't think maybe Cambridge winning away at Stevenage is probably the biggest shock out there, just scanning over them, in my opinion. But, half time, it could all change in 45 minutes, so can't take too much away from them at the end of the day.
Keep your messages coming in, hashtag WXM Matchday Live, as you can see in the top corner of the screen. We'll come to some of those messages after we have the second part of our interview with Football Secretary Geraint Parry. Those of you who are with us pre-match heard from Geraint about the formation of the club and some of the early days. We have the chance now to continue our conversation with Mr. Wrexham. So the club was founded in the Turf, which is of course the pub at the time that was at the winning post of the racecourse that was here. But just tell us a little bit about the racecourse that once existed here, because it was a lot bigger than just the diameter of the stadium that we know now.
Yes, that's correct. If there's some great old aerial photographs looking down from in town over the railway line, railway station, and so along what is the Mould Road now. And you can see the track that came, so it's by the pub, as you say, quite a nasty turn, I believe, but in front of the pub, and a few horses dismounted their jockeys. And then it went off into the wilderness, which was at the time, because we got a university and colleges and houses and a sports centre and everything out there now. But that was all just countryside. And it did go on this great big loop, if you like, out into the countryside before coming back to the turf. And they would do trotting races as well as jockeys on horses, like on the back of a horse. So you had the
where there's like the carriage popular behind the horse.
That's right, yeah, the buggies behind. That was popular as well. And then Bangor-on-Dee took over and Chester raced it itself. So the requirement for the ground to host such events diminished, and the football was getting more and more popular. Initially, as well, I believe that the actual pitch was 90 degrees to where it is now.
Oh, right.
So the turf was behind one goal.
Right.
But then after a while, I think it was the sun was settling, especially in the winter time, was obviously into people's eyes. So at some stage, they turned it through 90 degrees to where we recognise it today.
Of course, it's been a long journey for us to come back to the EFL, but it was actually quite a long journey from the formation of the club to get into the English Football League. Just tell us a little bit, Geraint, about the leagues that Wrexham played in those early eras. Because
football in Wales was macing in the north, South Wales stayed rugby, didn't it? And it was not easy to get between north and south. Obviously, it still isn't these days. It certainly wasn't in those days. So it was a lot easier for us to play teams. Merseyside, well, it wasn't Merseyside, but Liverpool, Wirral, Cheshire, Manchester, and down to Birmingham. And that's what we did. And when leagues like the Football Combination started up, that's when we joined. And then you started playing in proper leagues. There was a bit of expense obviously involved in going to Darwin or playing Villa Reserves or whatever. So they dropped out of that, went into the Welsh League for 4 seasons, and in the late 1880s, and found it a little bit too easy, I think, at the time. So right, let's get back into the English system, and that's what they did. And then, obviously, after the First World War, the opportunity became for the Football League to be extended. So they then had a first and second division. They wanted a third division. So we applied for it, but it was really only for southern-based teams. That lasted 1 year, it was 1920. And then in 1921, I think they realised we've got to have the northern teams in it. So a third division north and south appeared. And we applied, and along with teams like Wigan Borough and some long lost names like that, we accepted. And into the league we went, and we stayed there right through. We stayed in that division, third division north, right until 1958, when they decided, right, we want a national third and a national fourth. So they split up. We managed to get into the third division, as it was, and then we just fluttered between third and fourth divisions over the next few years. But we were playing league football, and we could play it professionally. So well ahead of South Wales, Cardiff, Swansea came along at the turn of the century. And then football becomes popular. Rugby's still a very popular sport, no problem with that. But then, the couple of football clubs that weren't professional do become very popular. And you see massive attendances appearing all around the place as people enjoy playing the sport and watching it. And we were part of that. And it's been a great journey to get us back into the Football League. I have to drop it out of it, isn't it? But thanks to new owners and everything they brought with them, it's like... I don't know, people, I keep getting clubs writing to me, and say, when we talk about something else, and they go, you must be on a great adventure. And it's just, yes, you don't recognise the place. It's incredible. I mean, we've just been outside now, and there's still people from all over the world. Not, it's great the Americans come to us, which is amazing. But then, there's people from Colombia, from Taiwan, from Australia, South America, let alone Europe, and a few from Scotland and places like that. And they're just so enthusiastic about and wrapped up in what the TV series has really projected us, hasn't it? And the TV series is more than just the football. It's about the club and the culture and the people behind it. And the Americans in particular just love it. It appeals to them. they're used to their big clubs, professional clubs, big franchises, and they're used to that. That's not a problem. But the New York Yankees are not going to move. But there's other teams, and we've just seen the Oakland A's are just on their way, aren't they? Going to Las Vegas via Sacramento, and somebody can support the Oakland A's, and then suddenly the teams just, I'm not making enough money here. I'm off ski, and well, we don't have that outside of one team, probably the Football League. But we're all local teams. If your team fails, it's because of the locality and the local people not supporting it, as well as other things can come along, don't get me wrong. But then when things go wrong, the locale comes out, as we've shown time and time again here.
Football Secretary Geraint Parry, as we continue to look back at the history of Wrexham AFC. The third part of that interview will follow in our full-time show tonight. As you can see, the players are running out behind us for the start of the second half. Wrexham 0, Huddersfield 0. I've got Paul Rutherford still alongside me, and Paula J. Smith has been in touch using hashtag WXM Matchday Live, and Paula says solid first half with solid possession. What do you think we need to do to change second half to get the boys on the scoreboard?
I think, like we touched on earlier, I think if we can create a few overloads around Barnett, get him a few more options and try and create that 1v1 scenario for him to get his quality into the box, and even extra options we can go and link up with, maybe Palmer, maybe Cannon, just to create those scenarios and different problems so Huddersfield to deal with. And I think, with his quality, that's going to be a big area for us to exploit.
Big 45 coming up for Wrexham then tonight as they try and celebrate their anniversary with a win. Paul and I and Andy and Mia will all be back at full time. We'll go through more of your messages then and review the full 90 minutes together with player and managerial reaction. We'll see you back then. Welcome back to the Stoke Kairas. Full time between Wrexham and Huddersfield Town, and it's finished Wrexham 0, Huddersfield Town 0. So the Terriers have stopped Wrexham's impregnable home run this season. 5 wins out of 5 before tonight. But the first drop points at home. A hard-working performance from Michael Duff's side. A match full of intensity from first to last, but relatively few chances as both teams cancelled each other out through the 90 minutes. Huddersfield came out the brighter at the start of the second half and really had the better of things for the first 15 minutes or so. But Wrexham had the clearest chance in the 73rd minute. A Dan Scar header going back across goal, causing mayhem in the Huddersfield backline, eventually hacked away a couple of yards from the line. But the Terriers had some chances of their own after that. Bojan Radulovic twice denied by quick thinking from Arthur Okonkwo. Wrexham, though, threatening right towards the death. A Paul Mullin header going over the bar from Ryan Barnett's cross at the 90-minute mark. But in truth, I think, Paul, Andy and Mia, a draw, probably a fair reflection. Paul?
Yeah, I think, obviously across the full game there, I thought Wrexham probably deserved the first half. Had a lot more impetus, a lot more territory. I think second half Huddersfield come out with a lot more determination to try and affect the game in a positive way for them. I think they imposed themselves upon the game a lot better than that certainly the beginning bit of the second half, and Wrexham sort of struggled to cope with that initially. It's just a shame that energy and that little bit of injection of tempo towards the end of the game didn't come a little bit sooner, because we looked a real threat towards the back end of the game, and if that had happened maybe 10 minutes earlier, it could have created a few more chances for us. But unfortunately, just probably a fair result tonight, and there wasn't quite enough in the game for either team to shade it really.
Yeah, I agree with Brothers. I think a draw was a fair result. I think it was a really good game, but from a tactical point of view, it's two really good teams, two really good defending their box really well, and giving up very, very little. I think they marshalled Barnett in that second half really well.
Yeah.
I thought they nullified that threat, and we just needed somebody else to step up, and we didn't really get that. I thought Elliot Lee might just play that little bit higher up, but it never materialised. But two good teams. I think you would have took 4 points from the two games over this last 3 days, and you may have flipped them and said you win here and draw away. But it doesn't matter how you get them, and 4 points and on to another tough game on the weekend.
Is that another point gained, Mia, or do you think Phil will be thinking that's 2 dropped?
No, I think definitely point gained. I think, like Andy said, it makes that win at Rotherham on Saturday feel even bigger, and I think you, as long as you got something from tonight, that was huge, especially going into Charlton now on Saturday. And And yeah, I don't think the performance was perfect tonight, but there were positives to take from it, definitely. And I think, we said earlier that, now we've played every single one of the teams that have come down from the Championship last year, so that's a good gauge as well.
Yeah.
For us to take from that, and I think we put a good account out for ourselves tonight, and yeah, definitely a point gained.
Mo Farl getting his first minutes, Andy, in League One. Will that be another notch up the confidence graph for him after the success he had in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy game that we did a couple of weeks back?
Yeah, definitely, and I think he did really well. He came on and had a bit of a go, changed a bit of impetus, gave him a little bit of freshness up front. I thought he might have got a little bit longer after the weekend and the way that the boys worked on the weekend, but he'll get more minutes as we come. He'll get dripped in. I think that was the first game where we've just seen, without Marriott and Fletcher to come on to change and freshen up the front two, I think they really missed that dynamic that they had, on 60 or 70 minutes. They changed the front two, and it just gives them that extra in the last 20 minutes, and we just maybe missed that today.
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry, Mia, isn't it? Because obviously with Jack Marriott going to be out probably for around about 4 months, Phil thought. Fletcher now out, we heard pre-match for at least the next few games. Suddenly 5 strikers to pick from is down to 3, and we saw that straight away tonight. Will Boyle came onto the bench when I'm thinking truth, Phil Parkinson probably would have wanted a more attack-minded player, but maybe Harry Ashfield, this could be his opportunity to find himself pushed up the rankings a bit, if you like, in terms of getting some game time.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this at the start of the season with players brought in saying we've now got a lot of depth, and at the start of the season you're thinking how are they going to get in, but this is what happens in football, players get injuries and stuff happens, so they're going to get the opportunity, and I think that's what they've got to take now going forward. I think Mo Farl put a really good account out for himself tonight. I think the only question in him is sort of can he do that Palmer role defensively as well as going forward, and that'll be interesting to watch. But Paul Mullin and Ollie Palmer have done the business a lot now over the last few seasons, so I have no doubts that they can continue to do that together as a partnership.
Paul, that point Mia makes there about defending from the front, one of the things Elliot Lee said to us on this programme a couple of weeks back was if you want to play for Phil Parkinson, you've got to be prepared to run. And one of the things that Parkinson said on Saturday was he wasn't just pleased with Mullin's goal, it was his work rate, and he called Palmer out for that as well. Do you think that's something that Mo Farl is going to have to perhaps prioritise as he starts to ask questions about selection of getting into the side in League One? Can he do the defensive job as a striker as much as scoring goals?
I think certainly football's evolved. Defenders, I say football's evolved. Ian Rush was a classic at it. You defend from the front first and foremost, and that's your first line of defence. You can see tonight 2 really hard working structured sides, key being hard working, and it's paramount in modern football. You have to work hard, you have to do your job for the team defensively as well as be a threat going forward as a forward player. I think Mia touched on another really good point that it's certainly a big opportunity now. The lighter numbers up there, and certainly as a young player that's exactly what you need. As much as it's unfortunate for other lads to be injured, it's a real opportunity now to go and stamp your claim and go and get a place in that side.
Well, the squad depth has been talked about a lot here at Wrexham, and it will now start to be tested. Max Cleworth hopefully not far from a return. We don't have a timescale on that, but Cleworth currently out of course, together with Jack Marriott and, as we've heard tonight, Steve Fletcher and George Evans, of course, another long-termer. So just a test beginning perhaps now for Phil Parkinson as we start to move into the second quarter of the season. Please get in touch tonight through hashtag WXM MatchDay Live. This is your chance to ask questions. We're probably going to be around for about the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, getting some reaction from the Wrexham camp. So please get in touch through X. Thank you to Paula Smith who has done that, and some nice comments from one or two others as well. Hello to Lou Balls 77, and hello as well to Baz Thomas who has been watching. So hi to Baz and to Lou and to Wrexham fan Dan. Great coverage so far by the crew. Thank you very much, Dan. Gutted not to have made it there tonight. Well, if you were going to pick a game to miss, then maybe a 0-0's not a bad one to miss, Dan. So we look forward to welcoming you back to the Kairas for the next game against Mansfield, of course, on the 9th of November. Charlton Athletic looming up on Saturday. Andy, tough place to go, the Valley, and an improving team.
Yeah, absolutely, and another one, isn't it? I said that before this little run, there's 5 games now, sort of with Mansfield and Stockport coming up, that are really tough, and a gauge of, we said 10 games, you see where you are in the league. This 15 is a real eye-opener, and if you can come out the back end of those in some sort of order and some sort of attack, then you're in with a right chance of being up there at the end of the season. So Charlton away is just another one. It's going to be another really tough game. The lads will just rest up, recover, get as much energy drinks and stuff as they can possibly get down them, and look to rest and look to go again. I think he'll make a couple of changes to maybe freshen it up down there. I think a Rathbone may well come into the team, and maybe a File may start, away from home. I think is a little bit more comfortable than the pressure of a home game. So a couple of changes maybe, but another really tough game on road.
So Charlton away for Wrexham on Saturday. Let's have a look at what's been going on around League One tonight. We can catch up now on all of the scores and see where that leaves the League One table. Of course, Barnsley 1, Charlton 1. These are latest scores. Most of these matches heading into added time as we managed to get the score for you. So these were latest in most cases. Barnsley 1, Charlton 1. Birmingham looking like another 3 points at St Andrews, beating Bolton Wanderers by 2-0. All square between Bristol Rovers and Shrewsbury. Wycombe continuing to fly along. They are winning 3-2 at Burton in the depths of injury time. Crawley 2, Lincoln 0. Reading looking like adding another win for their points tally away at Exeter City. Orient beating Rotherham by 1-0. Peterborough thumping Blackpool, who are having a very roller coaster ride this season. 5-1 there in Cambridge. Stevenage 0, Cambridge United 1. Looks like a first win of the season for Cambridge. All square at Edgeley Park between Stockport and Northampton. Wigan 1, Mansfield 2, so the Stags continue to surprise with that 2-1 advantage at Wigan, which is looking like taking them to 3 points, and we know of course it was all square here. Full-time Wrexham 0, Huddersfield Town 0. So assuming all those games stay like that, this is how the League One table will look this evening. Wrexham remain in second, and they're still on that magical 2 points a game average. 24 from 12 played, still an excellent start. 4 points behind Birmingham, runaway leaders. Well, sort of runaway. I think over the season people will be surprised if they don't run away with the title in the end, but then a load of teams queuing up behind Wrexham. Mia, your reflections on that League One table?
Yeah, I think looking at it just on first glance, obviously most of those ones around us in the top half of the table picking up points tonight, which is not great for us, but you've got to focus on ourselves, and I think that's what we've just got to do going forward now, and just think about our games rather than those around us. And looking ahead at Saturday, I think obviously Charlton, like Andy touched on, a very difficult place to go. Obviously that's where Birmingham dropped points a couple of weeks ago, so if they can drop points there, I think pretty much anyone in this league can.
Just looking there, it's like 5 points the difference between 17th and 4th or 5th. Do you know what I mean? It's so tight and congested in there. You've got a couple of wins and you're straight up to the top end of the table, and you're being chased. Wrexham are being chased now as one of those ones in those automatic places. So they'll have to just keep on winning and keep on doing their thing and try and stay ahead of the pack.
It shows the quality in the division, doesn't it? There's so many strong teams. Every game's a real tough test. It's a cliche in football, but there are no easy games, and you've got to run your own race. That's all Wrexham can do. That's all we can do is make sure that we take the opportunities that are presented to us and maximise them.
Absolutely. And here's Phil Parkinson, Wrexham manager, joining us tonight. Phil, great to see you. How did you see that one?
I thought first half we had the better of it. Credit to them. Second half they changed it. They flattened off the midfield and made it tighter. I thought first half we're getting Andy Cannon and Elliot Lee on the ball in some really good positions. It was a high quality game in terms of not so much on the ball, but in two teams very structured and very hard working without the ball, and there was no quarter given, and the way they set up certainly second half, it was always going to be just a moment which separated the two teams, and neither teams could find it.
Is that, would you say, a good old-fashioned kind of top six battle at this level?
Yeah, definitely. I think they came and it gave us a lot of respect, and obviously they've got good players and they could sustain what they were doing right the way to the end of the game, because they've got players obviously who've played at a higher level, and we couldn't quite find the opening. But I was pleased with the lads tonight. I thought they worked really hard for us. They really did. There was a real structure about us about the ball, which we had to have. We concentrated on the detail of their key players, and when in the main we saw them off comfortably. It was just not our night in terms of getting that one bit of magic to go and win us a game.
Any particular aspects of the performance particularly please you?
I think just that really, that we looked at them like we always do, and it's the concentration levels and the key runs the opposition players make and make sure we saw them off, and we did that. And I thought first half the performance probably warranted us coming in ahead. We had some great moments, good periods of pressure, but when you have those periods of pressure, obviously you've got to score, and we didn't. But I think all in all, I just thought the way the lads stuck to the jobs tonight and their roles and responsibilities without the ball was excellent. And just said to the lads in there, if you'd gone Rotherham away, Huddersfield at home, and give us 4 points, we'd have taken that. We've got them the other way round than people probably would have anticipated, but 4 points against two teams who've come down from the Championship is a great return for us.
And to still be at that 2 points a game average, Phil, with 24 points after 12 games, I'm sure you'd have taken that at the start of the season, wouldn't you?
Without doubt, we've had some challenging games, as I always say, but we have a bit of disruption with a few injuries and Fletch going down yesterday. So yeah, of course we'll take it, and we're pleased with where we are and the points return, and we've got a fantastic game to look forward to at the weekend with a 20,000 plus crowd, and that's going to be a great game to be involved in.
Now, Paul Mullin said on Saturday it was the first time he'd had 90 minutes, I think, for over 200 days, but you've managed to get another full 90 in 3 days later.
Yeah.
So in terms of building up his match fitness and his resilience and his ability to get through a full game must be another positive for you to take.
Yeah, listen, he's in a good place, and I thought he put a real shift in again tonight, and I was tempted to bring him off with 10 minutes to go, but you always feel that a moment might come for him, and it nearly did with that header to win us the game. I thought he really put on a great performance of honesty for us tonight.
And finally, Mo Farl, nice to get him some first League One minutes. And looking at the injury situation, I guess the first are probably a few ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Mo's getting there with us in training, understanding the intensity we need him to train at. And one thing about Mo, he can finish, and he wants to get in that 6-yard box and score. And we're getting him fitter, and we're getting him stronger. And he's learning from some very good strikers in the club already.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for coming to join us again tonight. Well done on 24 points from 12, and all the very best, of course, against Charlton on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Wrexham manager Phil Parkinson giving us his post-match reaction here on Matchday Live. If you're just joining us on YouTube, then it finished Wrexham 0, Huddersfield Town 0 on Wrexham's big day, their 160th anniversary. And Phil very much echoing some of the thoughts we were talking about before he joined us, about the fact that if you'd offered him 4 points, Mia, from Rotherham and Huddersfield, he'd have taken them. That's what they've got, perhaps just the other way around.
Yeah, maybe we know what we're talking about.
I wouldn't go that far. We were just lucky.
First time for everything, eh?
No, but I think he'll be delighted, like he says, with 4 from 2 and 2 clean sheets as well. I think defensively he's got to be really pleased. I thought Saturday was a really good defensive performance, but today probably even better. I thought we really put a good account out for ourselves and looked really strong. And I think we touched on the injuries. I think losing Max a few weeks ago was a big loss, but Dan Scar's slotted straight into that back three and made it his own, really. And I think now it's the challenge. Obviously we want to see Max back, but it's going to be a challenge for him to get back into this team.
Yeah, and I think Phil making the point that there was nothing really in the game. He felt his side were on top going into the half-time whistle. Will there be some disappointment, Andy, having obviously managed yourself, that if you've had the better of the first half and you're at home, that then the dynamic has shifted a little bit in the second?
I don't think so. I think other managers you've got to give a bit of credit to. He said the same. They've just changed their formation slightly. I thought Kasumu in the centre of midfield, I thought he was brilliant tonight. He does the Dobson role and has done brilliantly across the middle of the pitch there. He just broke everything up and kept it really, really simple. We're playing against some good teams here and some good managers, have been there and done it. And so you've just got to sometimes you hold your hands up. Yes, when we were on top we needed to score. We didn't quite manage to do that today. We have done in the past a few games. And it's just another point on the board, and we look forward to Saturday.
Keep your messages coming into us. Hashtag WXM Matchday Live. Paula Smith's been back in touch to say thanks for the extra coverage, team. Great way to start the working day here in New Zealand. How about that? The reach of Matchday Live and of Wrexham Football Club. There was a time when it didn't reach as far as Coed Poeth, but now we've got watchers in New Zealand, so that is fantastic. Thank you, Paula. Glad it's a good start to your day, and thank you everyone else who has been in touch through hashtag WXM Matchday Live. Please send us your thoughts and further questions before we close. We hope to get one of the players available shortly, but we're going to have a chance to bring in our head of community. Jamie Edwards is going to join us to have a word here. Andy Morrell's going to pass his microphone. Hello, Jamie. Good to see you again. Jamie, we had the chance at the start of the programme today just to wind the clock back 160 years to how it all began. And of course the beginnings of football in Wrexham were about Edward Manners buying a football and giving the local men the opportunity to play with it. And if we wind forward 160 years, so much of course has changed. But in terms of the philosophy of what you're doing with the community programmes, a lot of what you're currently launching, as I understand it, is about giving people opportunities to play. Perhaps you could just talk to us a little bit about some of the big projects you're currently driving.
Yeah, we've had a really good 6 months really of planning this. So obviously, you know the story behind the football club. The community has got behind the club at many of times when they needed it. And it's our way of being able to give something back to the community. The main thing is it's football mad. So the more free football that we can give in the most hardest to reach areas in Wrexham where people usually don't get that opportunity is going to be our aims going forward. So we've got a Street Dragons programme, Healthy Dragons programme, an Equal Dragons programme, and a Primary Dragons programme, and all of it will be about how we can connect the football club to the community. You saw it tonight, the club connects when there's a game on. How can we do it when it's not Saturday 3 o'clock or Tuesday at 7:45?
Wow, so lots of different programmes there, Jamie. I know you're not long in the job yourself, of course, having joined just a few months ago. Where do you see the particular opportunities still there to be taken in terms of activity that perhaps hasn't been started yet, which could be stimulated in the local area?
It's just the volume that we can do. There's such a good foundation here in terms of what's already going on. We've got some great staff that are working within the foundation going forward. We definitely need more staff so we can do more. But the connections are there. Everybody wants to be a partner with Wrexham at the moment, which is credit to what's gone on before. And we've just got to pick the right partnership. So whether that's working with the health board with health messages, whether that's working with the local council and Active Wrexham to make sure that we are going to those areas that the club hasn't gone to before, to be honest, that's where we're really looking.
And I know recently you've been involved with a programme to really help Welsh language development, and Ollie Lathrone and Jack Merritt, just before he did his injury, were getting involved in the Scent with trying to get some basic Welsh learnt. Tell us a little bit about that programme.
Yeah, so we've got a full-time Welsh tutor called Hugh, who's absolutely fantastic actually. He works across every department in the football club, so whether that's somebody trying to return a shirt into the shop who speaks Welsh, he's there to support the shop. Whether that's us trying to deliver stuff within the community and weave in the Welsh language into a football session, he's there to support. And then we had Ollie and Jack, and it's gone out on socials. It was actually fantastic because footballers are always competitive, and Hugh managed to put a lesson together. And forgive me, I'm doing Welsh lessons as well. I'm very, very amateur at it at the moment. The well-known, does anybody know the train station here and can say it?
Oh, the longest train station in the world.
No,
I definitely couldn't say it.
The offer's about as far as I can go.
Basically, they had a task to be able who could put it together right the first, and how many times Hugh had to say it. I think Jack just about won. I think there was a little bit of cheating, but it was fantastic to watch because whenever you put competition into footballers, they want to win. So yeah, it was a great spectacle.
Fantastic. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for coming to join us full time here tonight. Shame no win for us to talk about, but so many great programmes which I'm sure are going to win in their own different ways over the coming months. So we look forward to you joining us again and hearing how some of those are going.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jamie Edwards, Wrexham's Head of Community, updating us on the various Dragons programmes that the club are actively driving in the local area as the outreach of Wrexham AFC continues to develop. Well, earlier in the show tonight, we had the chance to hear from Geraint Parry, our club secretary, looking back at the early days of Wrexham and then starting to bring it a little bit more up to the current era. We now have the chance to see the final part, where Geraint tells us about one or two of his own personal favourite memories. And in terms of your proximity to the ground and your first walk, I guess, from your home in Wrexham to see the team, do you remember much of that opening experience?
Strange enough, I was brought up on the Wirral. The family are from Bangor and down the coast, so Welsh family. And when I got to this stage that I could go to a football match at 14, the train from Bidston down to just stops outside the door. It still runs, brilliant. I still see a few of the guards who are maybe not on those first trains, but over the years I got to know, and they're still coming to the games here, and that's lovely. And so that's what the train brought me down. And it brought a lot of people from the Wirral down. I get people coming on from Birkenhead, from Neston, from Upton and places like that. So we had a nice sort of community going. And I just came down to a game, 1974, September, I can even remember, I was 14. We beat Plymouth 5-1. Plymouth had a heck of a side. We then beat them 3-0 in the away game, which I believe was on Match of the Day. We would beat them 8-1 aggregate. They got promoted. But yeah, I was hooked. As soon as I came through the door, I stood around, looked around. I just love it. It was a home. And it's become it ever since.
50 years on, of course, so many experiences, so many matches, Geraint, that you have seen then as a supporter and then clearly for many years as our club secretary. Thinking about some of your away trips beyond the racecourse, is there perhaps one that stands out as being particularly memorable in all your years?
I mean, there's some great trips, and that's when you go 2 years out and away win, you go with the same people, and there's a minibus of us, and you've got to keep going because this might be the one. And some nice, really good people, friends for life, isn't it? And that's what it's about. But yes, if you're going to pick a game, for me, it's got to be Porto in the Cup Winners' Cup back in 1984. I mean, amazing to get a 1-0 win against them here. But you think, well, we've had our day in the sun, haven't we? But we've got to go the away game. So we got no flights in those days. At least the team flew, didn't they? But we got the train. So we basically left. We had lost 4-3 on the Saturday at home to Stockport. Got the train for a couple of days down through France and Spain and into Porto. And when we got there, the local sports newspapers, and that's what I love about going abroad, the sports newspapers, there was a flag at Porto, here we come. One of the guys had done it and just put a little bed sheet up on the railings of the Kop, and they had a photograph of it on there. It's the day we walked through the station, and the first thing we see is, welcome, Porto, here we come. We're here. And I mean, amazing trip. The game itself, I hope people have seen it. It was hidden away almost at the time, which is a real shame. No Sky 24-hour coverage, no BT Sport or whatever, concentrating on particular rounds of the competition. But we go to Porto, and I think they were in one of the European Cup finals the year after Paolo Futre, Peter Barotta in goal. So names like this. And we're 3-0 down pretty early on. The rain is belting down, it's windswept, it's just a horrible night. I thought, well, we've had our fun, haven't we? And then, good heavens, we're going to score 2 goals for half time. And suddenly, we're head on away goals. Great half time, fantastic. And then early in the second half, they're going to score another one. There we go again. Can't complain. We've done well. We scored a couple of goals away from home. And then, of course, we go and get that very late goal, which swings everything back in our favour.
The Barry Horn Kung Fu kick.
Well, exactly, it was just incredible. We were with his father, actually. We were in the completely wrong place of the side of the ground. We just had the tickets, waved at somebody, and you go here. And we were on the far side of the ground. We should have been in nice seats. We were just on a big terrace on the far side, and the locals weren't very happy. Some of them were taking their belts off and swinging them. I think Barry's dad got a nice big bruise on his side for his troubles. But he was up on the top of the fence, screaming his head off, wasn't he? Jim Steele involved, and Barry finishes off. There are experiences that money literally cannot buy, and to come back from that. But people didn't know about it when we got home. It was because it was so late at night when the game was played. I missed all the newspapers the following morning. The only person who I think in the UK certainly had photographs was the leader. The leader photographer was threatened that if their photographs appeared anywhere but before the leader on the Friday, when it came out, that he was going to get sacked. So we had to wait for that. and so it was all sort of like almost quietly. We beat Arsenal, which is an amazing, amazing game in the FA Cup. But that went around the world straight away. Whereas Porto was really much under the radar. But to do it over 2 legs is phenomenal. And I'd say we were struggling in the 4th division in those days.
And continued to do so after that game that season?
Yeah, we came back. Most of the lads went straight home from London. 2 of us got the train down to Torquay, and we lost 4-3 again.
Slightly different to Porto.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Geraint, in 50 years of being a supporter and then the secretary at the club, having seen the dark days of 2 years without an away win, all the financial problems, the highlights of a Porto, and then the modern day that you talk to in terms of the interest in the club, as we reach our 160th birthday, what's your hope for the future of the club?
I keep thinking it'll peak at some stage, don't it? Being a realist and been through all this before, but then I look at the way the club has grown, the infrastructure behind the club, the quality of people they're bringing in is just phenomenal, and I'm just thinking that this is setting the club up for something we couldn't achieve when we got promoted to the old second division championship back in 1978. We had 4 seasons there. 1 season we did all right, maybe 2 seasons, then it was struggle and down became, and straight down to the bottom of the 4th division as well. But we didn't have the infrastructure behind it. We didn't have the quality of players, the depth of squad that we've got at the moment. It's just phenomenal. And off the pitch, we know it's an old stadium. It's our home, don't get me wrong, but it is an old stadium. So you've got to try and to get 30,000 people here every game at the moment selling out. It's beyond our wildest dreams. You say we couldn't get people to cross the road, could we, to come watch us? And now they cross the Atlantic.
Geraint, thank you. What a line that was to finish from Geraint. There was a time when we couldn't get people to cross the road to watch Wrexham FC. Now they're across the Atlantic. Paul, Andy and Mia, you've all had dealings as players with Geraint Parry. Paul, perhaps you could just give us a reminder or two of how you found dealing with Mr. Wrexham.
He's an absolute gentleman. You know, there was nothing ever too much for him. He'd always help you out. You know, if you needed 20 tickets, 2 tickets, he'd always be there to help you out. You know, it's great to see that, you know, he's still enjoying his role, because, you know, he's a real heartbeat of this football club, and, you know, it's just good that people like G are still connected with the club in a big way, and, you know, I think it's really important.
Yeah, I think I can't say enough good words about him. He's a gentleman.
I'll say a few words.
Easy for you to say, Andy.
He's just, for me, he's just a legend. You know, it gets bandied about quite a lot, that word around here, and he is, like Paul said, the heartbeat of this football club. Loads of people have come across his path, and he's dealt with them in such a manner. He's meeting people now from across the Atlantic and making them feel welcome. He's doing personal tours and stuff like that all around here. He hasn't got enough time for everybody, but he tries to make enough time for as much as he can. So I love him to bits. He's been brilliant for me when I've been here as a player and as a manager, and I'm so pleased he's got a little bit of airtime today.
Yeah, I'd only echo what's been said, really. I mean, obviously I grew up around the club with my dad, and, you know, he was always the first point of contact. He was always the one there to sort of, you know, make sure you were all right if dad suddenly had to jog off somewhere or whatever, and then obviously coming through the club as a player and seeing him on the sidelines at every single game. He knows every single stat and every single person as well, probably in this stadium and in Wrexham. I'd probably stretch that to as well, and in football in general, I think, as well. But yeah, honestly, a proper legend. I think, you know, like Andy said, that word gets used a lot, but, you know, he's definitely up there, and he's such a big part. We talk about 160th anniversary. I think he is Mr. Wrexham. You know,
Did he not buy that football? Was he not the one that bought it?
I was going to say, well, he's been here for 160 years, hasn't he?
He did joke at the very start of the first part, if people were watching at the start of the evening, that he wasn't at the first game. Just to. It was interesting, actually, when I was doing a little bit of research with Geraint, that Wrexham actually only appointed their first manager. Bear in mind, they're founded in 1864. When do you think the first manager was appointed?
You've put us on a spot.
Yeah,
I'm going to say.
Have a guess, Paul.
I'm going to say 1910.
1910.
No, after that, 1920.
Yeah.
I'll go 1915 then.
1924.
Oh, close.
So first 60 years, a team picked by selection committee. Can you imagine that now? You know,
so it's quite fitting, though, isn't it? Like, you know, obviously with the supporters' trust and everything, that the community was picking the team back then. You know, it just shows that it's been a theme throughout the history of the club.
Yeah. So it's the 160th anniversary of Wrexham tonight, and 100 years since they had their first manager, Mr. Hewitt. So there you are, at the very beginning.
Was he better than this fella next to him?
Hashtag WXM Matchday Live. Did you have any particular experience with Geraint? Any kind of late night signings, Andy, going back when you were managing here, where it's kind of, you know, transfer deadline 5 to midnight, you're waiting for a fax or something like that back in the day?
Well, I don't think he ever left here on deadline days. I think he used to sleep here overnight, and on the days up to it as well, he used to just kip down because it was easier rather than going across the road to his house. He was here ready to go and answer any fax, computer emails or whatever into the club. Yeah, he's virtually lived here for 50 years. Do you know what I mean? On and off. So yeah, he's just a brilliant top guy.
Geraint Parry there, who took us through tonight all the various phases of Wrexham from its heritage. Don't forget, of course, there's an excellent website, www.wrexhamafcarchive.co.uk, run by Andy Mills, who had a programme from the 1930s season, which has been used tonight. I'm just going to pop down and grab mine actually off the floor, because it's a superb cover, and Geraint was telling us in one of the segments of the interview that the club played in blue for a large part of its early era. And you can see the wonderful programme cover tonight from the 1935-36 season. Apparently finding Wrexham programmes pre the Second World War is like finding hen's teeth, but they managed to replicate this one beautifully tonight. It really has been superbly done. So if you weren't here tonight or didn't manage to get yourself a programme, then I'm sure at least for a while there'll be some in the club shop. Certainly be a nice one to add to your collection. Wrexham 0, Huddersfield Town 0 tonight. We're close to wrapping up on Matchday Live. We were hoping to get some reaction from the Wrexham camp, so we'll just give it a minute or so more in case we can grab one of the players once they've done their post-match procedures. Paul Mullin has come through pretty well, I think. 2 games now, he's got through 90 minutes twice. He said last week he was feeling more like himself for the first time after what was the first time he'd ever had surgery in his life. I guess now that giving the supporters a sense of perspective will be the challenge, because as soon as you see Mullin out for 90 minutes twice, people think, well, he's fixed, he's better. You know, when's he going to be back to the Paul Mullin that was 24 goals a season and more in the last couple of years? What do you think can reasonably be expected of him from here forward? Because with those injuries to Fletcher and Marriott, there is going to be a slight risk now that more pressure than Phil Parkinson might want goes back on his shoulders quite early post-injury.
I think in terms of the mental side of it, I think, you know, he seems to be a guy who thrives on responsibility. I think he'll enjoy the onus and the responsibility and the, you know, the focus on him to go and get the goals for the lads. I think physically, you know, the first couple of games, you know, I know him, you know, coming back from injuries or coming back into teams at various points. Adrenaline and hunger and enthusiasm gets you through the first few games. I think, you know, we'll probably start to tire a couple more games in, and, you know, we're probably saying 5, 6, 7 games in. That's when you'll start to see, you know, full throttle Paul Mullin again. You know, that won't be to say that you won't see moments of quality in that time, because, you know, he's obviously, you know, a really good player and, you know, a really industrious player that will fight to make things happen. So, you know, I just think it'll be 5, 6, 7 games before he's fully up to speed, and I don't think it'll be a problem, the responsibility falling on his shoulders. You know, he seems to be a guy who thrives off that, and, you know, I think he'll enjoy that responsibility.
How tempted, Mia, do you think Phil Parkinson will be to not start him on Saturday and be worried I'm throwing too much at him too quickly? 3 games in a week's a lot for him to go at, having been out for so long.
I think he has to start Saturday. I think it'd be a very difficult decision for him not to. And listen, I think, you know, for him to do 290 minutes, I think he has to be at that level. I don't think Phil would put him at risk of him not being ready for that. So yeah, I think, you know, we'll definitely throw him in again on Saturday, and him getting that goal early on against Rotherham on Saturday was massive, especially with obviously the news of Jack as well.
Absolutely. Arthur, great to see you. Arthur Okonkwo, Wrexham goalkeeper, joining us on Match Day Live. How did you find that tonight?
Yeah, it was really frustrating. I think we created a lot of good chances, but we just couldn't find a way through today.
Looking at the game from your vantage point, the same vantage point you have every week, of course, did it look different in front of you to some of the recent fixtures in terms of how Huddersfield were pressing or the setup that they brought to the game?
Yeah, I think I shared the frustration with the fans today. We just couldn't get anything out of it. But no, Huddersfield pressed really well. They're really organised defensively, and yeah, they made it really difficult for us. And you know, we're used to scoring goals here, and we weren't able to manage to do that today.
It was an intense game, but relatively few chances. But in the second half, you had to be off your line quickly to make a couple of smart saves. Is it difficult sometimes in a game like that, where you're not involved for quite long periods, to suddenly have to make a save, or are you switched on all the time in readiness, thinking that could be the moment?
Yeah, I think any goalkeeper will say the same, and it's really difficult sometimes when you're not having much to do, but just staying alert and being ready for anything that comes your way. And yeah, I was happy that I was able to do that today. But yeah, again, just frustrated with the result today.
You are frustrated. I could, of course, see that. Every other game has been won this season. But is there a sense of perspective, having won at Rotherham on Saturday, that you've still got 4 points from your last 2 games? It's still 24 points from 12. You're still at that magic 2 points a game average, which, if you're still doing that come May, probably will mean promotion.
Yeah, you know, we have to be realistic. Huddersfield's a very good team. And yeah, you know, if we would have said beforehand, you know, we get 4 points, Rotherham away and Huddersfield at home, you know, I think we would take it. But obviously, I think the frustration comes from knowing how close we were today, and I feel like we had good opportunities to still win the game and could have created more. But yeah, that's football, and we move on, and it's on to Charlton on Saturday.
You mentioned Charlton on Saturday, and I enjoyed reading your interview in the programme tonight, where you said, I prefer living in the north to London, but you've got to go back there on Saturday. How's that going to be?
Hopefully there's some sun.
One of the upsides of the south be the north.
Yeah, there's a bit more sun up down there, so no, it should be a good game against them. It'll be again another tough test, and we're all really looking forward to it.
Big crowd down there, probably 20,000, but are you getting used to that now? Is that now just becoming the norm at this level, no longer a kind of perhaps a novelty that maybe it was a little bit in League Two?
I'm not going to complain about loads of fans being there. I think it's amazing when we have a good atmosphere and we're able to play against good teams and in front of big crowds, and I'm just enjoying every moment.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Arthur, thanks for joining us tonight. Well done today on the clean sheet.
Thank you.
And another point added, and all the very best, of course, for Charlton on Saturday.
Thank you very much.
Arthur Okonkwo, Wrexham goalkeeper, who managed to keep Huddersfield at bay tonight, this match finishing Wrexham 0, Huddersfield 0. Go on, Andy, what's ticking?
No, I'm just seeing Arthur in between these two. That was quite amusing. I thought I'd just stick him right in between you two.
Over his 2 kids.
Yeah.
Well, you've had Jake Edwards with you tonight, and
That's right, the 2 bouncers.
Yeah.
To be honest, I forgot Moz was 6'3".
The camera never lies, Paul. The camera never lies. Charlton on Saturday, Mia. You heading down there?
Sure am. I'm guessing you are as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't say that too encouragingly then, did I?
Oh, cheers. No, yeah, I've got to do on that with the Fearless in Devotion boys down there on the Friday night down in London. So I'm going to really look forward to that, and seeing Danny Wright and Glenn Little as well there on the Friday night. So that should be a fun evening with a couple of beers, I'm sure, and then staying over for the Charlton game.
Brilliant. Memories of 2013 and all around that time.
Absolutely.
And Mia, well done on the penalty on Sunday. Penalty shootout win in the Welsh Cup, and you stepped forward. Where did you go? Low, top corner?
Smashed it down the middle.
Smashed it down the middle.
Yeah.
If in doubt,
keeper always moves. Keeper always moves. So
good advice.
So yeah, good. But possibility of getting Wrexham next round now. So
Excellent.
We'll see.
When's the draw?
I don't know.
We'll wait and see. Paul, fantastic to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us as part of the team. It's been great to have you with us.
No, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
He can go get his coat now.
He can.
I honestly, I've been shivering the whole time.
He's been shivering for the last 2 hours, but anyway, you refused my jacket. I can understand
That's
why.
because it would have looked even smaller.
Andy Mia, thank you very much. Indeed. Well, it's been a roller coaster 160 years, hasn't it, in these parts? Some massive highs and some crushing lows. But tonight, Wrexham continued to consolidate what is developing into another fabulous chapter in the club's history. It might not have been a win against Huddersfield Town, but it's another point gained, and with 24 from 12 games, a quarter of the season behind them, everyone who follows Phil Parkinson's side will look forward with confidence on what the rest of the season might bring. Thank you for joining us on our special edition of Match Day Live. Doach and Willio, and we will see you for Mansfield on the 9th of November. From all of us here at the Stoke Kairas, a very good night.